Showtime, a-holes. Not referring to anybody watching this, just had to say it. So I rewatched Guardians Volume 2 in anticipation for Volume 3. I gotta be honest, I haven't really watched this movie since I saw it back in 2017 for the first time. I remember certain things that happened like with Ego, and then certain things with Yondu, and songs that were used by certain artists like Looking Glass and The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, which added a whole lot of great emotions for me, personally, as someone who really likes Fleetwood Mac's music, and obviously with Baby Groot. But basically, the Guardians of the Galaxy run into this character named Ego, who turns out to be Star-Lord's father, his biological father. And really the emotional crux of this movie is Star-Lord learning about his heritage, and whether or not he should actually accept his father for who he is, because it makes us, the audience, go, something's not right here. Even with all his rugged charm, it's easy to see that there's something shady about him. It's easy to say that this movie's not quite as good as its predecessor, that it might be in some ways a step down. It's not necessarily as big of a scope as the first film was, but as far as the implications and the characterizations and the depth that the characters get to have explored, except for maybe Drax to a certain degree, that I think is what really keeps the movie afloat, is the focus that James Gunn gives to all these principal characters. In particular, Yondu, played by Michael Rooker, who gets a lot more to do in this one, and how his character ends up in the finale really surprised me at the time when I first saw this, and even now watching it, it still gets me. We get to learn more about the bond between Gamora and Nebula, and how Nebula was very jealous of Gamora since she beat Nebula in every single fight that Thanos set them up in. Now she feels like she has something to prove against Gamora, but then she ultimately learns that just fighting back and getting revenge isn't exactly the way to go. Rocket gets to bond with Yondu, ironically, since they're both practically the same. Yondu goes on this one big spiel at a certain point in the movie that he was abandoned by his parents and he was tortured and experimented on, I believe, if I remember the monologue correctly. And Gamora and Peter start to become more and more closer romantically with this unspoken thing between the two of them. I guess you could say Gamora's kind of in denial about it, and she knows deep down that there's something between the two of them, but she immediately tries to brush it off like it's nothing. But as I said, the crux of this movie emotionally is Peter Quill's personal journey when he bonds with his biological father, only to learn the hard way that this guy is actually not who he thought he was. With the opening of the movie, we get to see a flashback to 1978, I believe, with Peter Quill's mom, going on their little romantic endeavor, a summer love type of thing, I suppose, showing us a clearly de-aged Kurt Russell. Might look kind of off in some shots depending on the lighting, but I think for the most part it looks fine. I know this is probably going to be a shorter video than the one I did on the first one, but that's because I really resonated more with the first film, and in the second film I don't really resonate with quite as much, but I still have a lot of fun with it, and there's still a lot of great moments that you could pull from this. Like with Peter bonding with Ego, the new addition of Mantis played by Pom Klementieff, Tiff, I have no idea. It's revealed that she's basically the pet and slave of Ego, trying to help him do whatever he bids to do. And she's able to feel certain feelings and make people go to sleep and control their minds, which also gives us a very humorous scene where she's able to feel Star-Lord's feelings for Gamora. And Drax, of course, starts to laugh hysterically over this. Drax, while he may just be resorted to a comic relief type of character since he takes everything very literally, I think he serves his purpose just fine, although I kind of wish that they had given him more to do in this one. Kind of the same thing in his appearance in Infinity War. Hopefully, with Volume 3, they give him something more worthwhile. Nevertheless, I still think Dave Bautista is just on fire with this character. You cannot deny that this guy's good at it. And the writing and directing by James Gunn, I think, really elevates it too. You must be so embarrassed. Do me, do me, do me. I also really like that Rocket doesn't have the same exact kind of bond with Groot that he did in the previous film. This one, Groot is a child. He doesn't know what to do with certain things, and you have to explain everything to him, almost every single intricate detail, so he actually does what you want him to do. Like the scene where Yondu and Rocket are being held by his goons. He's trying to explain to Baby Groot how to find his little tail fin that he wears on top of his head, and he keeps bringing the wrong item every single time, and shows him the symbol that's on the drawer that the sail is placed in, and then it finally starts to click. And before there was Baby Yoda, yes, there was Baby Groot. It was too much. To backtrack to Mantis for a second, her character is another indicator that Ego is not exactly who he makes himself out to be. Certain little subtleties that she gives in certain moments, we as the audience and not just the characters are starting to feel that, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why is she acting so scared around him? If you're a fan of Russell Crowe, this is the movie for you. I think he plays the part fine, but the character on the page is kind of just blah. Not really the most compelling. It turns out that he's a celestial, and he basically wants to wipe out all life in the universe by growing these little plants on various planets that he was inhabiting. Bonding with all of these various alien creatures trying to pass on his genetic code, all of them failed until he met Peter's mom. And then it's revealed that he basically caused Peter's mom to develop brain cancer. Everything leading up to that moment with the interactions between Peter and Ego starts off kind of uneasy, but then the father-son-like bond that develops between the two when he starts to play catch with him, I thought was actually a really nice moment, since he talks to Gamora about how he would watch the other kids playing catch with their dads, and he felt jealous and envious that he never got to have that. And when he finally gets that moment, I found it to be pretty heartwarming. And then when he shows Peter what he wants to do for eternity and how he can make him immortal, we don't see what he sees, but we can imagine that it's really overwhelming, almost like he's looking into the perspective of God, basically, even though in this case his father's an evil god. And then when he learns that his father caused his mother to die, I love how he doesn't even ask or hesitate to start shooting at him, because it's pretty obvious that his mother's death deeply affected him. And at one point he turns into an image of David Hasselhoff, which plays into what Peter's desires were deep down, that he wanted his father to be like David Hasselhoff, and it turns out he had someone like that all along in Yondu. And let's talk about that. Michael Rooker gets a lot more to do in this one. We already heard that he was kind of soft on Peter Quill since he picked him up on Earth many years ago, and the reason that he kept him around all this time was to protect him from Ego when he found out what he was doing to those other children, even though he told him that he was going to eat him if he didn't do what he asked him to do. I was being funny. That wasn't funny to me. Yondu is basically the definition of a space redneck, but it is pretty obvious that he cares for Peter very deeply and loves him like a son. And due to his actions of letting Peter go in the first film, he gets disowned and exiled by the other Ravagers, the head honcho of which is played by Sylvester Stallone. He doesn't really have a whole lot to do in this movie as I initially thought, but when he showed up, I thought, yo, Yondu. It's not every day you get to see a Philadelphian and a redneck in the same scene. As far as the rebellion against Yondu when Sean Gunn's character calls for a mutiny, there's a certain moment that happens with this one character who looks like Boris the Animal in Men in Black 3.
To rise once again to glory with a new captain, Taserface!
It's metaphorical! Long story short, a coworker of mine some time ago at my job started quoting that to me since he knew that I was really into Marvel and Star Wars. At first when he said that, I looked at him saying, what does that mean? He said, you don't remember that? It's from Guardians Volume 2. And I replied back, I haven't watched that movie since I saw it in theaters, so I don't even remember that part. But then when I saw it play out as I was watching it yesterday, I thought, okay, now it all makes sense. So thank you to my coworker for putting that in my brain for the rest of my life. And to this movie also. Oh, and I should mention that that arrow that Yondu uses whenever he whistles,
be afraid. Be very afraid.
yeah. And the moment Rocket hears that whistle when he's launching the traps on Yondu's goons, I love how when he hears that, he goes, oh crap. No time to mess around now. But even then, leading up to that moment, I love how he's just getting so much joy out of zapping the crap out of these people, and it's almost like what Kevin McAllister did to Harry and Marv in Home Alone. He's just so sadistic and gets so much joy out of that kind of stuff. I just love it when a character has those kinds of feelings like that. And hearing The Chain by Fleetwood Mac in certain moments, as someone who discovered their music during the height of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, when I had really nothing else to do, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Now I can't hear that song the same way anymore. But we don't just get the funny moments with Rocket and Baby Groot when he's trying to explain how to set off the bomb. But when Yondu saves Peter by holding the arrow up like this.
You look like Mary Poppins.
Is he cool?
Hell yeah, he's cool.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Oh yeah, and as far as the gold people, I don't know what the name of the alien race is, but they are just there to cause trouble for the Guardians here and there every once in a while, and I don't really care. They do have a purpose in the mid or post-credit scene, one among many, where it's a big tease for the character of Adam Warlock, who's going to be in Guardians Volume 3. But other than that, they don't really have any other purpose to be there. You do need some kind of antagonist to show up and cause some trouble in this movie, but yeah, I don't really need them in here. But of course, as the movie ends with the big climactic battle, Yondu saves Peter with the really great line,
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. I'm sorry I didn't do none of it right. I'm damn lucky you're my boy.
And then when he goes up into space and puts the space hologram suit over Peter, it's very obvious what's going to happen. I think we all knew that Yondu was going to make some kind of a sacrifice for Peter, but seeing how it plays out, watching it for the first time really shook me, and even now it still got me. And Chris Pratt's acting in here, oh, okay, I'm not going to talk about it without crying. Just another whammy for him to deal with. He lost his mother, found out that his father was evil, and his actual father figure is now dying too. Just wait until Infinity War when he loses Gamora. There's no going back from that. And I think the way the film handles Yondu's death is really great. It's not treated as some kind of a funny joke that they could throw in every once in a while. They take it very seriously and they acknowledge how much of an impact that it's had on Star-Lord and the other fellow Guardians, with him realizing that he was in a lot of ways his David Hasselhoff, that sometimes the thing you're looking for all along is right in front of you. It almost kind of reminds me of Captain Kirk's eulogy at the end of Star Trek Wrath of Khan. I won't spoil the character that he's talking about in case you haven't seen it. I'm just saying, it reminded me of that. Of my friend, I can only say this. Of all the souls I've encountered in my travels, his was the most human. And the payoff of the Ravengers launching the fireworks when Stallone's character said that they would never do that due to his actions. To say that it's satisfying doesn't quite cover it. And I was actually surprised to see that there's a plethora of mid and post credit scene with Stan Lee pretending to be a watcher talking about the various cameos, which I guess confirms that he is kind of like a watcher in the Marvel universe. Stallone's character reuniting with some of his old friends, one of them played by Ving Rhames, who I did not even remember was in this movie. Then we also have the tease with Adam Warlock, but then we get the teenage Groot just constantly playing on his phone. Peter tries to be a parent to him in some ways, and he gets talked back to by Groot. Now I know how Yondu felt.
Calm as a bitch.
Ain't that the truth? I am Groot. Whoa! You got some acorns on you, kid. So overall, Guardians Volume 2 isn't quite as good as the first one, but I still think there's a lot of fun to be had with this one. What really saves the movie for me is the deep focus on the characters, particularly with Peter Quill and what he experiences with his father. Learning more about other characters and seeing how it further progresses into the events of Infinity War and maybe, possibly what we could see in Guardians Volume 3. Who knows? And of course, with the really great use of popular music from the 70s and 80s. And now we go into Guardians Volume 3. Excited and terrified at the same time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on Guardians Volume 2. Can't promise you guys that I'm going to get a review of Volume 3 up right away, because I got to edit this together and put this one up, but I am going to get it out to you guys within the next week or so, so keep a lookout for that. And I got another plethora of videos coming your way on older movies that have hit a certain milestone, whether it's 10 years or 20 years. So, it's going to be a busy month, guys. Prepare yourselves. It's going to be really fun to talk about, though. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I'll see you in the next one.